Hello everyone, welcome back. Episode 6 here of KSR's Floppy Action, our new basketball breakdown show. It's not even new anymore, we're just here. This is just us. We do it regularly now. Pretty quick turnaround from our last video at this point. I think, it was before the Gonzaga game. That was what?
2 weeks ago?
Less than 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, not even.
Yeah, so we've now had the Gonzaga game. We've had Ole Miss, Auburn, and unfortunately, last night's debacle down in Baton Rouge. So we've got some things to cover here. I'm Zack Geoghegan. I'll get that out of the way first with KSR. Brandon Ramsey here, our X's and O's guru. Stephen Peak is over in the corner. He'll be joining us here at some point once his fan brain really starts to take over, which we know it will, and we love him for that.
Absolutely.
But today we have we've got about 6 plays queued up here that we're going to dive into. We're first going to go back to the Auburn game on Saturday, where Kentucky came out with a 70-59 win, probably the biggest win of the year up until this point. And then we will dive into 3 other plays from last night's loss to LSU. We will go ahead and dive right in, and we'll start with our Auburn game. We're actually starting at the very, very beginning of this game. And this is where Kentucky sets the tone defensively for the entire night. And this was a point that was made by Bruce Pearl and by LSU's head coach ahead of time, where if we can actually go back to the beginning there, Stephen, DJ Wagner sets the tone. He does this as well at the beginning of the second half too, where he is up in Trey Donaldson's face, pestering him in a great defensive stance. He does this for pretty much the first few possessions of both the halves against Auburn, and it sets the tone for how Kentucky plays defense the rest of that game. And you can say it maybe shook Auburn or however it played out, but it clearly worked. Brandon, why don't you kind of just take us through here what you saw from DJ to kick us off against Auburn?
Absolutely. And as Zach said, really from the opening tip, the first few seconds of the game, DJ Wagner took it to Auburn. And that's really impressive when you're going on the road, playing against a good team in this raucous atmosphere.
Bum ankle still.
Yeah. And I mean, he's still nursing a little bit of an ankle injury. Neville Arena had been packed since Wednesday night when they played South Carolina, like nobody ever left. And what I really liked early in this clip that you haven't seen a lot this year, obviously Kentucky has had issues guarding the ball screens this year. I mean, the Gonzaga film was pretty ugly just from a couple weeks ago. But like the ball screens aren't even factoring into the offense here because DJ Wagner's providing so much ball pressure, he's just able to slide right over the top of them, rendering them completely useless. And you can see also, and this was a common theme throughout the Auburn game. Obviously, we're not going to dive into 60 clips from it, but they're operating offense completely out of the scoring area here. Literally for the first 20 seconds, they're really never in a position to even look to score the basketball because DJ Wagner is just keeping them so far out on the perimeter. I mean, now we're like halfway into the shot clock, they still are catching the ball out of the half-court circle. So they never really had a chance to score it. DJ Wagner's keeping them out beyond the perimeter the entire possession, and then he gets them on their heels, and they turn it over. So just an excellent start, but you saw more of that throughout the game. That's how you end up winning 70-59 on the road, is elite ball pressure, and you're taking it to the team that you kind of thought would be the aggressor, playing at home, coming off of a 40-point win, and Kentucky kind of flipped that on them from the opening tip.
And that was kind of the theme against Ole Miss as well, where Kentucky's defense was just up in your face, aggressive. They made it a point to just get up more in the ball handler's face, and it paid off. We saw Kentucky have put together probably its 2 best defensive performances back-to-back, and in large part it was because of how DJ kickstarts thing with his intensity, the weird way I said that there, but I loved when John Welch compared him to Patrick Beverly. Yeah. That's what he means when he talks about stuff like that. That is something that Patrick Beverly does. Patrick Beverly is probably going to stand on the scorer's table afterwards after he does something like that and cheer and
he's
celebrate.
Also going to tell you about how he did it.
But that's kind of the same stuff that we see. Is Wagner was confident enough to know that he could shut down a guy like Trey Donaldson, at least early on at the point of attack, and it really just kind of fed into the rest of Kentucky for the rest of that game. Granted, Auburn probably missed a lot of shots that they normally might make, especially from deep.
Part of that's though because you set the tone like this. You get people playing on their heels, and I mean I think you wrote an article about it on KentuckySportsRadio.com. But
great website.
It's one of the best. But Kentucky had the best defense in the country last week.
Yeah.
In the entire country. Now we're talking here on what February 21st today is. Like we no longer feel like we have the best defense in the country.
Right.
But for 1 week we had the best defense in the country.
Okay, now we're into the second half here. We are going into some classic floppy action.
Shout out.
Right? I've heard that name before. This was a play, I think Kentucky pretty much did some rendition of this play maybe a dozen times in the last
in the
10
second
minutes
half,
against Auburn because it was working. Auburn had no idea how to cover it. Antonio Reeves, I think when I watched it back, Reeves kind of wasn't that efficient at the end of this game. I think he probably shot like maybe 3 of 7, 3 of 8 on these floppy action looks. But the main idea was Kentucky has a sizable lead here. They were milking 20, 25 seconds off the clock every single time. And when you get a shot like this where Reeves just pops wide open for 3 here off the floppy action, you've got some good screens set down here, especially from Ugo that just does enough to free open Reeves, get his defender off of him for just a clean look here. Thankfully, Janai Broom does not go over to Reeves, the best shooter in the SEC. And you get a wide open look for 3. And at this point, obviously, it puts Kentucky up by 12 with 8 minutes left. Those are just demoralizing type plays. But this was a set that Kentucky just went back to over and over and over again, and it worked pretty effectively enough for Kentucky to obviously come away with the win.
Absolutely, and what's really impressive about this too is the possession. I believe right before this play, Antonio Reeves off the exact same action curls that little baseline pin down and scores an and one. Mm-hmm. So like when you're able to run the same offensive action over and over again and you're able to score in different ways, that's what makes you so hard to guard because you have so many different options off the same play, off the same action that,
foreshadowing.
Yeah, and we'll get to even another option coming in just a minute. But yeah, like what really sets this play up too here is as you let Reeves get underneath the basket is how good he is at moving off of the ball, his change of speed, his change of direction, the pace that he plays with. Like, as we're kind of skipping through it here, and just look how he fakes and then sprints himself to the wing, and then to have the balance, the athleticism, the understanding of being able to get his feet underneath his shoulders and still square himself up to the ball. Like right here, he's still moving full speed away from the rim. Mm-hmm. And literally within a second, he's going to be facing the rim and knocking in a shot. And that's just so impressive to be able to go from running at that speed away from the rim to then being on balanced to make a shot like this. And that's why he's one of the best offensive players in the country this season.
Absolutely. I think we'll just go ahead and dive into the next play because I think this
same sort of action.
This shows off a couple of different things here. First of all, and this is probably the biggest moment of the entire game, in my opinion. Here, Kentucky, I believe Auburn had just cut this down to an 8-point lead. The crowd was packed here. They were into the game, and Kentucky is still continuing to go with this Antonio Reeves floppy action. And at this point, this is 5 minutes after after the first play we just showed.
Yeah.
All eyes on Auburn's defenders. All eyes were on Antonio Reeves because that's all they did was just look for him, and it worked for the most part. Like if it's not broke, don't fix it. So they kept running to it, kept going, and Reeves does a great job of, like you said, I don't know how he had enough energy after this game to keep going because he was doing this literally the last 10 minutes of the game, just running and sprinting. And as you see here, he draws the eyes of 2 Auburn defenders, and it does just enough to free open Adu. And I think Kentucky actually had maybe back-to-back plays where the floppy action didn't work because Auburn, it looked like they were starting to cheat out a little bit more. And it kind of shows part of Reed Shepherd's brilliance here too, where he notices exactly what's unfolding. He sees it, like his eyes, he's not looking anywhere but at Adu and Antonio. And he sees immediately, the second that he sees both those guys go on Reeves, he whips just a beautiful, that's a very tough pass. If Baker Mazzara, something like that, I kind of forget his name. If he has his hands up, there's a good chance he probably deflects this. Right. But he doesn't. Reed notices that, boom, wide open pass to Adu, 10-point lead with 2.5 minutes left, and that's the ball game.
Yeah, and something I had talked about on Twitter, both after the Ole Miss game and after this game, and it's what Zack's alluding to, but there's a real gravity to Antonio Reeves when he's on the court. And what I mean by that is it's like a gravitational pull, like defenders are pulled to Antonio Reeves, and you see that where guys are able to drive to the basket because they just won't help off of him. Or here you have 2 guys running at him because they're so scared of Antonio Reeves making a 3 like we showed earlier, and then that's able to open up, just for a split second, Adu Fierro kind of slip into the basket off of that screen because both of those men are trying to chase Antonio Reeves and take him away. And yeah, at this point, Auburn had kind of one final push that if they could have got a stop here, gone and scored, now all of a sudden the game pressure flips back to Kentucky. Sure enough, you get an emphatic dunk and you can kind of roll from here on out.
And part of it is it helps having guys like Rob out here who, God love KD Johnson. I don't. Someone does.
But sure when God does. You were right.
Maybe. Yeah. Let's hope so. But you've got, he's locked in on Rob, and I don't think even Rob was really he wasn't LSU Rob, obviously, at this point. But you've still got guys to, just attached to him. There's a gravity within Dillingham's own presence on the court, too.
And even Reed Shepherd as well.
You do not need to be guarding him this far out.
I mean, like Zack mentioned, if Baker Mazzara has his hands up, well, also if Baker Mazzara is standing at the free throw line, you can't make, and like in years past, like if that's Severe Wheeler with the ball, Chad Baker Mazzara is standing at the free throw line, but Reed Shepherd, he's getting guarded at half court because he might just pull up and shoot it.
And you've got, like you said, you got Katie Johnson pulled over here, so the lane is just wide open.
Yep.
Janai Broom probably doesn't need to be that far out on Ugo either, but these are just things that are happening.
Sorry, what's he doing?
Yeah, I know. This is I don't know what he's doing either. But it just works, like you sense it happening in the moment, and Reed is just a very good instinctual passer.
Yes.
He's just a very good instinctual player overall, as we can see.
Great
He's got
vision.
22 steals over the last 5 games. Now we'll go ahead and jump into last night's game.
Not as fun.
It was fun for about 21, well, not even that long, honestly. There was about an 8-minute stretch between the end of the first half and the first minute of the second half where it was legitimately fun. And honestly, Rob going for 21 points in the final 10 minutes.
Too.
Had Kentucky's final 12 points, including what would have been the go-ahead game winner. But we'll go into all that later. What we're going to talk about right now is, unfortunately, an issue that we've talked about before that we thought might have got corrected against teams like Vanderbilt, which, Vanderbilt. So we see it's another baseline out of bounds play here where I'm just going to let Brandon go into this and he can get as angry as he wants about this, because it is a little bit frustrating to watch here because you've got a very good three-point shooter who has just kind of torched Kentucky for the last 4 years at 2 different schools, shooting a wide open three out of a baselines out of bounds play. But Brandon, why don't you walk us through what pissed you off about this one?
Yeah, so first and foremost, when you just like pause it right here. I mean, first off, what exactly is Kentucky in? This is something where, I'm obviously not in practice ever, not just any day, but ever, and I'm not listening to scouting reports. I don't know what they're trying to do, but as somebody who coached college basketball for 6 years, I like to generally think that I can look at something and identify at least what the plan is. I have no idea what this defense is. Right here, it almost looks like some amoeba between a man-to-man and like a 1-3-1 zone almost. Like that's, I think, why Rob Dillingham's at the front of the rim. But like, if you're going to protect the rim like that, why not switch your 7-footer for your 6-footer and put Ugana Onyenso there? But then also now Will Baker, who's a good three-point shooter, he comes down to the corner, but you would assume that's who Onyenso's guarding, 7-footer on 7-footer. Why Antonio Reeves feels the need to come down here, I don't really know. And as Zack alluded to, Jordan Wright, I looked this morning, unfortunately. Jordan Wright at Vanderbilt last year, in their 2 wins over Kentucky in March, he was a combined 7 for 11 from 3. He hit 3 more last night. You would there's nobody on LSU's team who Kentucky should know more about than him. And what's so frustrating?
Well, Damian Collins.
Yeah, well, and Damian Collins, I guess, who didn't get to play, unfortunately, But then they didn't even have they didn't run a play. Jordan Wright is just standing in perfect shooting,
begging for the ball.
Yeah, he's just waiting for it, and we let them throw a direct pass to him, and it's essentially uncontested. And it's maddening that we've gotten to this point where we felt like it was fixed a little bit. We even threw in some 2-3 zone, and then now we're literally still to a point where we just left a good three-point shooter completely unguarded from out of bounds under for really no apparent reason. Again, they didn't run some special play to get him open. They literally just stood where they started.
Yes.
Yeah. Right now, Reeves is pointing.
So a lot of pointing going on.
And something that Zack mentioned, he was using the word communication. Something that I always talk about in coaching and people I work for used, and I think this is a really good thing, probably in life, not just in basketball.
Ooh, lessons.
But yeah, lessons with Brandon. But there's a difference between talking and communicating. Talking is a one-way street. I can talk to Zack. Communicating with Zack means that he grasps what I'm saying and execute.
So Adu gets a dunk here, puts Kentucky down by 1. Once again, we're at a critical stage in this game. This is a play that ends up with LSU getting a relatively wide open look for 3. They hit it. Ends up being a very key point in the game. There's a couple of different things here that I'll let Brandon point out, but the main thing is Kentucky actually does a decent job here on the ball screen defense.
More than decent. This is very good.
Yeah, like Ugo he's in his drop coverage there. He kind of presses up on this man. Rob is still pointing, but it works because he's got a guy already there waiting. But what happens is Reed gets caught ball watching, which is a theme, unfortunately, for him throughout this season. And you can literally see him watching the ball for pretty much the last 5 seconds of this play. And he inches in just enough to leave an LSU shooter wide open for an easy three. Brandon, what did you see in this one?
Yeah, so from the second that Adu Fierro threw this down, when I went back and rewatched it, I was a little frustrated because, pause it right here. Right now, and I know it's hard because we have to kind of pause it so that we don't get copyright striked and all kinds of weird YouTube rules that I don't understand, but Steven tells us we can't just roll the video perfectly, which is fine. But right now, I want our guys going crazy. Adu Fierro just dunked the ball. We just cut it to 1. We're on the road. We've given up a 15-point lead. Can we get come on guys, let's go, 1 stop. Just get excited for a second. You don't have to be Michigan State, Duke slapping the floor, but I want to see some guys hey, come on guys, we got this. We're going to win this game. Let's get 1 stop. It still kind of felt like a graveyard out here, but proceed. And yes, great job in the ball screen. I like Onyenso being willing to switch and guard a guard for a possession. Anybody can guard anybody for a possession. That is something that I'll say a lot. And he gets him to pick up his dribble here. So that's the biggest issue. First off, right now, whether he's still dribbling or not, as the ball gets driven towards you, when you're guarding a shooter, I want you tightening up to that shooter. Tighten up as the ball comes towards you. But number 2 is a 38.8% three-point shooter, Williams III for LSU. But then, especially once he picks up his dribble, there is nothing that he can do. He has a 7-footer guarding him. At this point, Reed should be literally staring into the eyes of number 2 because there is nothing 15 can do that we care about. There is nothing that he can accomplish that we care about. But this guy can sure as heck make a 3, and it is an issue. And Reed Sheppard does a lot of really, really good things for Kentucky men's basketball. He's probably our best, or at least most trustworthy playmaker in the half court. He's statistics-wise the best shooter in the country from a percentage basis. And defensively, this guy has 3 steals in 5 straight games and 5 steals in 4 of the last 5 games. So statistics-wise, metrics-wise, all these different websites are going to tell you how great he is. And I don't want to get overly negative, but I've never seen a defender that has a bigger difference between statistics and metrics and what the eye test would tell you. I think most coaches would watch the film and say Reed Sheppard is not a good defender. And yet there's websites that I like from people that I trust that would tell you that he's a top 10 defender in the country. And when he's gonna break all these steals records by Rajon Rondo and all these people, and it's that's great, but I kind of wish he would take away the 3.
That shot right there is not going to go into Reed's advanced defensive stats. And that's kind of where things get lost in translation a little bit, and that's no fault to anyone's. That's just, we're not to that point yet where we can rely on defensive statistics like we can offensive ones. So let's go to everyone's favorite play here as we wind things down on episode 6. Steven is jumping around. Do you want to join us for this one, Steven?
I was just checking.
No? He says no. He'll still chime in. I know he's got thoughts on this one. Kentucky's last 10 at this point, you knew the shot was going in. I think we all knew, LSU fans knew it was going in. Where things break down, actually, is in the last about 6 seconds or so. So we're now down to 8 seconds. Kentucky doesn't have a timeout. LSU has 1. They probably wisely, obviously, decide to not let Kentucky get set up. And LSU doesn't even make their initial action until about 5-6 seconds left. And what I love about this play, actually until the last 0.5 seconds, is Adu Fierro and Antonio Reeves did probably the best defensive job they could have done. Reeves stays with, actually, Steven, if you can go back up to the very beginning, where Reeves gets around this Will Baker screen. Not a great screen, but Reeves does a great job of getting around it there, sticks with his man.
It's like those DJ Wagner clips from
exactly.
Fighting over.
And Reeves did this a lot. He's done this a lot of last few, he's a better defender than I kind of had made myself believe he was. But Reed does a great job of bringing over, making a little bit extra help to allow Reeves to recover. Reeves is chest to chest with Wright pretty much the entire way down the floor here. He's bumping him, bruising him. It allows Adu to perfectly time up what should have been the game sealing block, because that's about as perfect of defense as, and if you can just leave it right there, Steven, that's about as perfect of defense as you can play in this scenario. And Kentucky gets exactly what they need. Unfortunately, and look at that, yeah, only 3.4 seconds left. Kentucky could not have played this any better.
Yep.
They just there's really no other way to say that other than they just get unlucky here. Adu's block somehow bounces right back to Jordan Wright, and Brandon, if you can, we talked about off camera, there was 1,000 things that could have gone wrong for Jordan Wright here. He could have not gotten the ball, he could have stepped out of bounds, he could have thrown it anywhere else besides right in front of the rim, but granted, credit to Jordan Wright, he's a very smart player. He's what, 5th year now in the SEC?
Played like 130 SEC
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. Kentucky has seen him plenty of times. He lofts the ball up to Tyrell here. Just an easy putback shot. There was, less than a second left under the clock, but so Adu and Antonio do their job. It's the other 3 guys on the court where we're going to kind of actually dissect and begin the breakdown of this play. So Brandon, I'll let you, I think we should pause it right here. Actually, go a little bit more, Steven. Or a little bit more forward, my bad, sorry. When he's like about to throw it back up, right there.
Yep.
So here's where the issues kind of pop up. And as you can see, there's 2.4 seconds, and this 2.4 seconds is where Kentucky loses focus and loses this game. You have Rob Dillingham, for some reason, about to sprint out to half court. There's no need for that at all. Reed Sheppard kind of doing his ball watching thing again. Maybe you can give him a little bit of credit because he's at least, under the rim, but he's not boxing out anyone. He's ball watching here. He's got 2, technically 3 LSU guys right on his back there. I know he's a smaller guy, but you've got to at least try and find a body on someone, not make it so easy to get this wide open, pretty much the easiest 2 points LSU had all night, right there at the rim. And third of all, Kentucky's only 7-footer is playing 2 feet outside the paint, also not trying to box out, also not going in and trying to mix things up here. You even have Adu getting up a second jump somehow, because he's athletic enough that he can make that happen and kind of contest this just a little bit, not really. But you've got 3 guys here for Kentucky, and now Rob realizes, oh crap, I should probably be in the play here. And you've got 3 guys for Kentucky that just lose all focus at literally the worst possible time, and it allows LSU to get the easiest bucket of the night.
Yeah, and I think the frustration from that point, because I'll admit, I probably don't have as big of a problem with it as maybe Zack has or what some people would have, because at that point, it's such a broken play. And I know, every 45-year-old man sitting on his couch says that I would play till the final buzzer and all this kind of stuff. Well, first of all, you've never played anything meaningful in your life. And second of all, it's impossible at this second to know, is there 3.5 seconds? Is there 1.5 seconds? Is there no time on the clock? So everybody kind of thinks, okay, Adu blocked the shot. Admittedly, it is human nature to kind of assume, all right, we're good. There's just very little you can do to combat that. Now, to me, where if you want to nitpick it, my problem is, let's act as if this was an offensive rebound. Which, I guess it kind of was, but let's act like they missed it at the rim. Then you would be talking about okay, why is your 7-footer out here and not in there? Why is Rob Dillingham just watching instead of getting in here? Why is Reed Sheppard not being a little bit more physical? So yes, it becomes a broken play where they're lobbing it up, but if you kind of break it down as if it was just a loose ball coming off the rim, now you really would have an issue with guys kind of standing and watching. And it is tough because Onyenso does have to be out here a little bit because Baker can shoot it in. Zack's of the opinion, I don't necessarily disagree with him wholeheartedly. I probably would in this exact instance, but maybe you let the 7-footer shoot all the shots? Yeah, maybe. But he also had just made one at this point. Yeah. So
a lot better than right at the rim.
Right. So right here, Ugo has to be out here. But then right now, he should probably immediately be sprinting in there. But again, I think that's some hindsight where it's easy for us to play it in super slow motion 17 times and say where he should have been standing when it's happening live and in a split second for them. So, to me, this is one where it's
unlucky.
Again, the ball could have bounced a different way instead of going right to Jordan Wright. He could have stepped out of bounds. He could have thrown the pass 6 inches to the right or to the left. The guy could have tricked the layup. Like there's a bunch of different things that could have happened. They all happened perfectly for LSU. Sometimes you tip your cap. I mean, again, yeah, it'd be great if somebody went in there and knocked the loose ball away, but it'd also be great if we didn't give up a 15-point lead to a team that we should beat. So,
all very fair points.
I just want to win the games. Like, can we just start winning some of the basketball? I sound like Steven, but I just want to win the basketball games. Come over here, Steven.
Yeah.
Say something. But okay.
What's your stat on the 3 for 31 coming into last night's game?
I think Hoops Insight on Twitter talked about it. He said that Kentucky, since January 1st, 2020, Kentucky has, in the last 32 chances to either tie or win the game, has scored now on four tries out of 32, which isn't great. But here's where it gets worse. Out of those 4 makes, they've still lost 3 times.
Is that counting last night?
It's counting last night. It's unbelievable.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. It's like
happens.
Kentucky.
That is an insane stat.
You can still get you got the 4 on there, and it's like, oh, if you get the 4, you've got the 4th made shot. That means Kentucky probably won, right?
No.
And you still can't even get that to go your way.
Do we have to do something? Is Rupp Arena buried, or is something buried below Rupp Arena that we need to look at?
You need to get the excavators out.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up because I felt like last time I looked like I was like 3 foot
tall. We did have, Steven the little person with us.
The injuries, too. We can't get a healthy roster. Again, I'm looking at this game like, if Trey Mitchell was in, Kentucky probably wins this game.
Well, especially last night because Ugo was kind of getting torched on defense. Yep. And it would have been
32 minutes.
And you couldn't bring in Aaron or Big Z because they're just equally not ready at all to play in those games, and you just don't really have another option. There's no other guy out there to bail out Ugo and get him some minutes or some breaks. And
because all of these losses are telling this story that the program's in this decline, and if you just flip these close losses into wins, and some of this is this is a coaching staff that knows basketball. Calipari, you don't take 3 teams to a Final Four or do any of the runs that he had, or even at the success he had from 2015 through 2020 when the season was canceled. You don't have that, and you're a bad coach.
Right.
Bad coaches don't win championships outside of
Kevin Ollie.
That's the only one. You don't even know where to go as a fan because it's just I want to blame Calipari because he's the guy who's in charge, but I'm still just these random plays that are just not going Kentucky's way, and some of it you'd have to think if you're losing as many close games, that means the players are getting you to those points where a coach can win the game.
Yeah.
A coaching staff wins these close games. Matt McMahon, I love him. Murray State racer. I love him.
Out.
But come on, we have a better coaching staff than LSU.
Yeah.
They should win these. They should win. They should at least, I would say, split these close games. You should win as many as you lose. I think that's what a good coaching staff does, and I think a great coaching staff wins more.
You probably, generally speaking, you win half of them because it's mostly a coin flip. Almost the baseline should be winning half of them, and then you say a good coaching staff wins 60% of them, 70% of them, whatever, because that can then get you more, the luck kind of shifts in your favor at that point. But yeah, it's becoming increasingly frustrating, and it's honestly it's becoming almost normalized for some of these negative things to happen that it doesn't seem as shocking when it's well, of course LSU threw it at the end to win. And it's we all kind of looked at each other well, yep, I guess that's what the 5th time that's happened in the last 2 years. It's frustrating.
Let's just get to March and let's reverse all these fortunes and win a bunch of games.
Let's have it's time for
close games. Yeah. Why couldn't we think that this team could win
exactly.
4 or 5 in a row?
Let's have a Aaron Harrison run, make a bunch of. Rob Dillingham's the perfect guy to do it. Yeah. Could we? Let's be honest. Could we not see Rob Dillingham making every single Aaron Harrison shot and we win and
absolutely
go to a Final Four? That would not shock me.
No.
Also, wouldn't shock me if we lose in the first round.
Yeah. Well, the UK could very easily beat the hell out of Alabama on Saturday, and we have a completely different conversation because I think that's more than a realistic possibility that Kentucky can score 105 points and beat Alabama. And then we're back up on the high part of the meme of the graph.
We're stuck in COVID. It's so weird.
Well,
I guess that's it.